All right, how's it going, Dr. H, classmates? For those of you who don't know, my name is Preston Pearson. I guess you would know we're in class together, but you've never seen me or heard me speak really before. But this is my video presentation for Dr. H's class, Exercise, Sports, and Related Nutrition. And I will answer a client-based question and try to give my best response back to that. So before I jump into it, sorry about the quarantine mustache here. I grew it out over quarantine, and honestly, I didn't know I could grow a mustache, and so I'm just going to keep rocking it for now, but I hope you can still take me serious throughout this presentation. But my question is going to be when to use lean body mass or body weight recommendation for protein consumption. Really, before I jump into this, I'm going to go over my scope of practice real fast. I work as a strength and conditioning coach in a collegiate setting, working mainly with football players. And I also work as a health coach, I guess is what you want to call it, in a wellness program, working mainly with corporate clientele. So two vastly different worlds, two vastly different populations with different goals. But really my main scope is I can recommend nutritional intake, but really can't make a nutritional program. So I can't write out something that they should follow or anything like that. I'm not a registered dietitian. And I'm not going to push supplementation or really any type of company backing or anything behind any recommendation that I'd give. So the reason I wanted to do something based off of protein is I feel a protein more so than carbohydrates or fat is a really kind of a hot button issue. You hear a ton about protein, and I think it kind of gets misconstrued what the main function of protein is throughout the body. So really, before I jump into it, I want to go over the main role of protein from a biologic standpoint. So based off of the Essentials of Strength Training and Conditioning from Half and Triplet, the 4th edition from 2016, protein is the primary structural and functional component of every cell in the human body. I think that's a really powerful statement within itself, really. Just stating that protein is in every single cell in your body and is completely foundational for so many different systems throughout the body. So honestly, I can see why it could be misconstrued, the amount of protein that would be adequate throughout the day, just based off of the simple fact that it's just so abundant throughout the body. The main function is used for growth, development, building, and repairment of cells, So especially what we're talking about, mainly within fitness, and what I'm going to be talking about here is it's really important as far as putting on muscle mass or muscle repair and recovery. An adequate amount of protein is going to be needed. It can also serve as secondary functions as enzymes, transport carriers, and can even be used as a hormone receptor. But the main takeaway, or not the main takeaway from the biological portion of protein, is that is essential for maintaining health, reproduction, and cellular function. Moving from there, how I kind of got into the lean body mass versus body weight recommendation is our actual N=1 experiment. I used that study on myself. I based my protein consumption on my lean body mass for 4 weeks. So that came out to be about 150 grams a day. I did 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or not body weight, lean body mass, and had about 150 grams per day for about 4 weeks. It was high. It was kind of hard to get to on certain days too. That's just a lot of protein to consume, but I had great results from it. I put on about 2.5 pounds of muscle mass and even lost some body fat in the process as well. So, but really the science behind why I like to do the lean body mass is, first and foremost, protein is very metabolically active. And what I mean by that is more so than carbohydrates or fats, you're going to burn a lot more protein, burn a lot more calories digesting protein more so than the other two. And also just what I was stating earlier as far as its overall function throughout the body in so many different systems, in every cell in the body, it just has this huge metabolic demand. Secondly, muscle mass is also very metabolically active. And what I mean by that is muscle consumes a ton of energy, but it also uses a ton of energy. A good example of that would just be, our relationship with movement. Movement is truly just our muscles pulling on bones so we can, move throughout the day. Just that in itself requires a ton of energy from our muscles to do that throughout the day, consuming and using enough energy. And also, as far as if an individual has a really high amount of muscle mass, muscle being very metabolically active, it almost puts their entire system into a very metabolically active state because the main tissue on their body is very metabolically active. The inverse to that would be somebody who has a really high amount of adipose tissue or a high amount of body fats. Well, their main tissue throughout their body is really metabolically inactive. So it kind of puts them in a very metabolically inactive state. So anytime anybody's trying to lose weight or anything like that, the main function they should try to do is to put on muscle to try to get their system back into a metabolically active state. A study by Phillips and Van Loon from 2011, the Journal of Sports Sciences, stated that from the meta-analysis they found, the leaner an individual becomes, the more need for dietary protein, just based off that big metabolic demand of having that much muscle. So this is partly due to the fact that a lot of muscle mass requires a lot of protein to maintain, just as I was stating earlier, in order to maintain protein or maintain muscle or put on muscle, you're going to need an adequate amount of protein to do that, and especially if you have a lot of muscle already. And also partly due to the fact that muscular body, is very metabolically active and just needs more nutrients to meet that big energy demand of being so metabolically active. So a few limitations. Meta-analysis by Delamaris from 2013 of ISRN Nutrition found that over protein consumption or protein over the recommended daily allowance, which they put at about 0.8 grams per kilogram, led to a big metabolic burden on bones, kidneys, and liver, and can put participants at a risk for coronary heart disease, or a high risk for coronary heart disease. So, however, the study only used protein supplementation like powders or nutritional bars, and meat and protein coming from meat. And so more studies that I would like to see, or more research coming out on this, would need to look at the best type of protein to use, whether it be this certain amount of animal protein, this certain amount of plant protein, and really what the best ratio between that would be. So my main takeaway from the presentation being athletes should always base their protein consumption based off their lean body mass. Only reason I say that is the majority of athletes are going to have a high amount of muscle mass, and so if they can base their protein on their lean body mass, that's only going to match their metabolic demand that they'll need more accurately. Non-athletes really depends on their overall makeup. And so what I mean by that, if it's a non-athlete, maybe they're a gym rat, they're still in really good shape, whatever it may be, they can still base their protein consumption on their lean body mass if they have a high amount of muscle mass throughout their body. Inversely, if they have a high amount of fat mass, I would still recommend it on lean body mass. The reason being, if they're basing their recommendations on their body weights, and their body weight is a really big number, that could actually put their caloric intake at a surplus, because that's going to be a lot of protein that they're going to need throughout the day. So even then, if they can base it off of their lean body mass, that's going to give them more of an accurate reading of really the metabolic demands that they actually need. So, but that is the end of my video presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope everybody has a great Memorial weekend, and thanks for tuning in.